Hey there, I'm Paul Muller, host of the AI Forecast, Data and AI in the Cloud Era, a weekly podcast proudly sponsored by Cloudera that explores the past, present and future of data and AI in the enterprise. This is another instalment in a series of recordings we made in New York City at Cloudera's Evolve 24 event, a great event which brought together some of the brightest minds in data and AI to look at the latest innovations, success stories and what's to come. Now for this week's episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AI Forecast podcast, a podcast where we take a look at the past, present and future of data and AI in the enterprise. And we're going to take a look today at an external perspective, at an industry analyst perspective of enterprise AI and how businesses should be thinking about adoption of AI and things they should watch out for. To do that, I'm joined by the founder and principal of SanjMo, Sanjeev Mohan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm really keen to get into peer inside your mind, as it were, and get some sense of what you're seeing out in the marketplace. But before we do that, we have a little opportunity to limber up the audience, chance to know you a bit better.
Yeah.
So we call it the Fast Four. So let's give it a go. Shall we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First question: what would people who know you best say is your superpower?
I would say people admire my curiosity, my sense of wonder, which you have it as a child, and then you kind of lose it when you grow up. And somehow I'm just fascinated by people I meet, the jackets they wear, the cities I travel to, and I strike up a conversation and I'm always curious and eager to learn.
You know what? I don't know whether being in industry, you found industry analyst work or the work found you, because it sounds like it's a natural fit.
Yes, actually the work found me.
I love that. Yeah. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Talking about technology, what do you think was the most impactful technology in history?
There are many ways to answer this. I can very easily sound very esoteric by saying it's the wheel or the fire, but let's be honest, I wasn't there. So one quality I like to imbibe is being very pragmatic. Mm-hmm. So I would say the biggest impactful technology in my life is data. Because that's my career. That is what drives me every single day. What can I do with data? How good is it? How I can unlock all kinds of data and do something with it for good or bad too. I mean, that happens too, but there's more good than bad.
I want to challenge you though, because I'm pretty sure that like the Indian culture invented the zero,
yes,
which was the beginning of data. Let's think about it. Which means, were you there for if you said you weren't there for the wheel and fire, are you telling me you were there for the creation of data?
Well, I've never actually modern data. So data. Let's put it this way. Good point, by the way. I never ever connected the invention of zero with data, but that's a great insight. That's brilliant. Digital data. How's that?
I'm going to go with zero again. You can't have digital data without a zero.
That is true. and in fact, you are right, because to be honest, digital data came into the fore with the mainframe era, and I wasn't there for that. I wasn't there for punch cards, although I look old, but luckily I came after that, so I wasn't there. Okay. But this current...
I'm glad we clarified that, just for our audience.
This is great. I love this banter.
Your earlier denial set it up for confirming that. All right, let's move on to the topic of enterprise AI. As an industry analyst, I'm really curious to get your answer on this one. You process a lot of data. Mm-hmm. Where do you think AI where would you like to see AI automate something that would be most helpful to you personally or professionally?
So I am extremely excited about where AI is going personally.
Yep.
Like, how can it help me? I as an analyst, I produce a lot of content. Mm-hmm. Written content, written podcasts, I do all of that, but let's say written content. In my previous life, when I was a real analyst, if you may, I had an army of editors or publishers who would actually look at my work and spiff it up. Mm-hmm. and make it look amazing. Now I'm by myself. So I'm always at a loss. How do I polish my article? I have now seen AI has reached a point where instead of just doing a Q&A, do this for me, do that for me, I can upload my entire document. I can say polish it, make it more, make it friendlier, or translate it into French, or embellish it, add comments. By the way, I can do the same for code. Like I can write my Python code and say, I want this piece to be converted to C++ because it's faster. Add a comment automatically. So I'm being very personal here because AI has so many amazing use cases. People are using it for customer service and saving a lot of money, although it's debatable because jobs are also impacted. So I'm not going there. But to me, the use of AI can be transformative in the way I do my day-to-day work. What used to take me weeks and months, I can now do it in a much shorter time.
There you go. I think it's a great answer. Corollary, where would you like to see the human stay in the middle? What process are you like, AI can help, but I want to see a human there too?
So I want humans to be the arbiter. I cannot trust. So let me backtrack a second. I want AI to be my assistant. I don't want it to be my boss. I
think we have a show title.
So one way of looking at AI, actually where AI is going, I'm most excited is when AI becomes a collaborator for me and not somebody like a helper. I can ask question, it can give answer. I want to be able to collaborate, but the final output, the final interaction with my clients, with my colleagues is very human-centric. So AI should really be in the background, making me smarter and not taking over my job.
I think it's a great answer. Final question before we move into the topic at hand. We all have a relationship with data, especially as we get older, I think, and with more experience, we learn some of the tricks and tips for processing data, for acting on it. What are some of the things that have helped you through your career? Maybe one in particular.
Just being proactive. We are inundated with data and requests for our attention, and our attention span is shrinking faster than that of a gnat. With all the stimulus that we get from our devices, and so I tell people, when you get the piece of data, just process it now. There's nothing better than present and now. And so live in the present.
Yeah, I like
and just go execute it. I tell people this all the time. Planning, I heard, not my statement, I heard it from somebody who heard it on a podcast. Planning is a form of procrastination. And this line hit me like a brick wall. Like, wait, what do you mean? I love planning. I love doing things. So now, actually, this is something I've never said. This is the first time I'm sharing my thoughts.
World exclusive.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that I used to create all these planning documents. I have banished the word planning.
I love it.
I call it my prep document.
There you go.
It's a
mindset.
It's a mindset. Some people may say, "Oh, so what? It's still
semantics."
It's semantics. Yeah. But I like to use the word preparation. So when I tell people, let's get on a podcast, here is the prep document rather than a planning document.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's and look, mindset is everything in life and in business, right? So I think it's
absolutely.
It's a great hack. I really like it as a hack for people. It's fun. Let's talk about you before we get onto the industry. You and I know each other a little, but I'm sure our audience would like to know a bit more about your background.
I started my background, like I said, in my career. So I grew up in India. I came to the US to work for Oracle in 1990s. Yep. And then I was with them for some years, and then the dot-com boom happened. Those were absolutely amazing, outstanding days. We traveled the world. Money was no object. We thought we were going to rule the world. And I wasn't working, I was on a mission, e-commerce, e-business, and all that came to a crashing halt. And I was like, oh my God, should I even be in IT, And then by that time, Y2K had finished. So there was an influx of offshore companies who were vying for the same jobs we were doing in the US. So A, the jobs went away, and B, we had a competition from these super smart people at 1/4 or 1/5 the cost of what would it hire. So those are very difficult days. But the economy went back up. And actually, what happened by early 2000 was the year 2006 was a pivotal year because Hadoop came into existence, AWS came into existence, NoSQL came into existence, and all of a sudden we had this revival of what we were at that time calling big data, and data became sexy again.
Yeah.
And so we all came running back. And since then, things have never stopped. In fact, I'm just excited. Every day I wake up, there's something new. Actually, there are 10 new things that I have to follow up.
It's really, just reflecting on that, personally, I had to reconcile that an emotion I haven't felt in quite some time, which is I can't keep up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really, and it can fill you with a lot of dread. Because especially in the tech world where you almost become used to, with your family and friends, it's like, you're so far ahead, Sanjeev. You seem to know you're always up to date with the latest tech. And I had the same thing. Now it's like, I can't even keep up. I feel like a Luddite.
And the thing is that you and I are not alone. It's everybody. But I have a huge advantage as an analyst because I get paid to research. So, Paul, if you have a full-time job, when do you get time to keep up to date?
Yeah, that's true.
And for me, this is my job. So it's a great place to be.
Look, it's wonderful. And then you've obviously gone and started your own firm?
Yes. Okay. So then, to make the long story short, you have to keep me in check. So I spent many years as a consultant, and then Gartner found me. I became an analyst, which was a complete surprise to me, but I thrived in that environment because I love interacting with customers and learning from them, writing, presenting. 3 years ago in 2021, I decided that, time is now finally here for me to strike it on my own, something I'd never done all my life. So it was a risk I took. And I have to say, it's been no dull moment since the day I left. It's been like nonstop action. And it's only getting more exciting as days go by. So I started a company. Now, my first challenge was, what do I call the company?
Yep.
Again, I'm sharing with you, please let me know if this is TMI. But I knew deep down in my heart that when I start a company, the word data has to be in the title name of my company because that's my identity. I started looking at data this, data that, and after a while, I was like, this is kind of boring. It's like, how do you distinguish if somebody is called data incognito, data whatever? It's like, there's just too many. So literally as a joke, I decided to call it SanjMo, which is my name.
A portmanteau.
A portmanteau of my name and also my Twitter handle.
Convenient.
And the first thing people told me was, what a silly name. How would anyone know? You finished. You've anyway lost your Gartner.
That would have been my instinct.
My wife's instinct too, But I have to say, I kept saying, look, names don't really matter. By the way, I have this thing where people ask me, data fabric, data mesh, data lakes, big data, and I tell them, don't worry about names. Worry about the value. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Because names can be a distraction. So I took an approach that, people will get used to the name, and it's me that they are asking for. So the name is...
Some of the most famous companies in the world are named for the founder. So, think about Dell or HP, right? I mean, so why not?
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. And it sounds like, as we said, it found you, which is brilliant. Tell us a little bit. I mean, we talked a bit about the huge pace of innovation that's going on at the moment. I think that sense of anxiety that the world's just moving faster than we can keep up with. Is that something that is just me, or is that shared by enterprise? What are you hearing when you're talking about particularly enterprise AI, as you're talking to both the technology side and the customer side, the enterprise side? What's the high-level overview at the moment?
There is a huge pent-up excitement, even in enterprises. And there's a very funny thing, interesting thing that has happened. I frequently go to conferences and events. That's, as an analyst, we've been doing it for years. When I would come back from an event, I would go to my client or somebody and I would say, oh my God, you have to see what new stuff is coming. There is a new graph database. And the business would literally stare at me blankly, shake their head and say, okay, get out. We don't want to hear about a graph database. Today, it's a business that's excited. IT is scared, actually, because IT has to implement it. The business is looking at these opportunities and saying, wait, we can now do this. We can automate a certain piece of our function and have these agents that can do this. I want it today. I want it yesterday. And the IT is saying, yeah, but we're not ready for it. Our data is not clean. We don't even have a single source of truth for our data. And we have all kinds of foundational problems. But business is the one driving it. It's a business initiative. And that's why enterprises are so excited. It's competitive advantage. If you don't do it now, although people may say, yeah, but at what cost? And we've heard from Andy Jassy to Sundar Pichai to all these people have said, Mark Zuckerberg, that we know it costs a lot, but we've got to invest because this is transformation at its height.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, as we think about enterprise AI, you've obviously got the, whether you want to call them the Magnificent Seven or there seems to be a new name for them every week, but you've got the tech companies that are, fueled by this. They're able to reinvest at the levels required. Right. And we're talking breathtaking amounts of money.
Yes, correct.
The sorts of, I mean, as we then think about enterprises, is the level of enthusiasm the same? Are the levels of expectations appropriate? What are you getting as you talk to enterprises?
So something really different is happening right now, which is not fair to some extent, if I may. We've had a very thriving community of small software companies, a lot of open source, but now the center of gravity has shifted to these 7 large companies. In fact, when people talk about how amazing S&P 500 is doing, I tell people, no, it's not S&P 500, it's S&P 7. Yeah. The other companies are not doing that great. In fact, open source is not doing that great, I have to say. They're laying people off because, so the reason why these companies are doing so well is because enterprises are confused with all the new advancements that are coming out every single day. Actually, multiple new announcements come out every few hours. So what enterprises are saying is that, look, I have a hyperscaler as my partner or a large database vendor, and I expect you to help me navigate these choppy waters. So, because I don't have the bandwidth, like we were saying earlier, I have a daytime job. How do I keep up with what's going on? Also, the problem that I, as an enterprise, I have is, let's say I buy into the technology that's du jour, but tomorrow it's outdated. What am I going to do? I'm locked in. So I'd rather have a trusted partner who can help me navigate these waters. And if something changes, there's some sort of backward compatibility or some way to future-proof my investment.
Yeah, that's a great point. I want to touch a little bit about on the relationship then to open source, because one of the things that, at least my observation, and I not only don't have a particular technology domain I'm an expert in. I tend to cross into business as much as technology. But as I look at the tech space with, say, software development, like the DevOps world, while there's a reasonable degree of open source in there, there's a lot of proprietary systems in there as well. As I look at the big data world, I think one of the defining characteristics for me, certainly one of the notable differences, is the huge amount of open source that seems to underpin a lot of that community. You mentioned proprietary systems and vendor lock-in before, and that's a particularly acute problem, I believe, when there's a lot of innovation going on.
Yes.
Because you could back the wrong horse.
Right.
How are organizations balancing that? Does the question make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I have a point of view on how organizations are handling the open source stuff. So when you implement anything new or technology, it consists of many layers. It's a whole vertical stack. At the lowest layer, you've got the hardware, the physical, the chips, the cloud providers, the data layer, the application layer, and on and on. So there are many layers. In my opinion, open source is thriving at the lower layers. As you go up the stack, and it becomes more domain specific, that is where organizations are not necessarily willing to use open source products, because the stakes are higher, the business logic is embedded in that. But the lower you are, like for example, Linux operating system, who cares about Linux, right? It's an amazing operating system, it just works. Why would I have a proprietary? If you go up to file storage, you got Parquet files. Why would I change? Although, I mean, now things start getting a little bit murky. Then you go up to Spark. Then you come up to table formats like Iceberg or Hoodie or Delta.
Yes.
So again, it's an amazing technology. The open standards have been really an amazing stuff. And so at the infrastructure layer, open source is thriving. Yep. The problem that I'm pointing out is that it is very, very hard for software companies to monetize open source.
Yes. Yeah, but equally important, because I guess if you are an enterprise that's adopting, and I guess here's where my question was going, was, I'm thinking about this issue of proprietary lock-in.
Yeah.
I see open source to a certain extent as a proxy for industry standards, because let's be honest, there are no real industry standards in the sense of an ISO standard.
Yeah.
The open source community represents that by proxy. And at least it gives me choice. I don't feel like I need to be locked into a particular thing. But then I have the problem of having to manage all of that myself potentially, or my staff having to manage it. And I guess you used the Linux example. Companies like Red Hat evolved to take what was an unsupported open source distribution and surround it with enterprise-like capabilities. Right. Is that a path forward in this new world?
When we talk about vendor lock-in, there is really, vendor lock-in is everywhere, even with open source, because like you said, I can use the open source engine. So it's open core. It's not even open source, or it's open source code. But then the enterprise has wrapped it around, or the software company has wrapped it around with some proprietary features that improve performance, security. In open source, I may not get the row level, column level security that my organization depends upon. So this question about vendor lock-in is a very tricky question, because it's not a question of whether you're locked in, it's a question of what is the cost and the risk of migrating it off that software. And if that cost is very high, like the databases of the past, then you say, I'm locked in. But if that cost is not too high, then you say, okay, fine, I'm just going to move to a different software stack.
That makes sense. So talking to enterprises today, what would your advice be to them in terms of how they should think about adopting some of these AI capabilities, integrating them into their business? What should they be doing?
Paul, just like we were saying a few minutes ago, it's a business that's excited. To me, AI is a business initiative. It's not a technology initiative. People tell me all the time, I'm so excited about this new large language model. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm like, yeah, but for what? What is your use case? It's a business problem you're trying to solve. It's not a technology problem. I am a techie. I love technology. And I highly support. Let's go play with Iceberg and LLM and structured and unstructured data and do vector embeddings and vector databases. But what is a business problem? So the first thing I tell people is, and your mileage may vary. You may say, I want to improve the customer service part of my business. Somebody may say, I want to do developer productivity, so I want to code generation. Some may say, I want to do mainframe migration. So you see, that is a starting point. The second thing I tell people is, when you have identified what your business use case is, bring in governance at that point. Again, going back from my personal experience, data governance was a dirty word. We never wanted to do it. We were like, it's so exciting to build a new data warehouse, a data lake. I don't want to be a party pooper by going and doing data governance. So it was an afterthought. So now I tell people, you have identified a set of business use cases, document in your AI governance tool, which is extension of data governance. I don't want to make it sound like everything is brand new. So document it. Document the use case you will get. How are you experimenting? What models have you evaluated? Which one is working? Some use cases may deliver value, some may not.
Yep.
All of this should be governed. Don't make it an afterthought.
I think it's really good advice. And in terms of who should be doing the governing, it sounds to me like that's also, you need to be careful about or mindful of where that gets initiated,
Yes.
how it's monitored.
Correct.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about, this is a board level initiative. Is that overstating it? Are there grassroots initiatives as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The board, the CEO is asking their business heads. Like, for example, Pfizer CEO, this is something I heard a year ago, so I'm sure it has changed. The CEO of Pfizer is saying that we have millions of medical journals and all kinds of past history, which is like unstructured and PDFs, and some may still be on paper. So what he has told all his business heads is that bring AI, but I want AI to deliver significant value. I don't want it to create a frequently asked questions. I want to find in that millions of documents, correlations that can help find cures faster. Or, it takes many years, a decade to do a new drug creation. Can we reduce the time? Can we reduce the time for FDA approval? Those answers, by the way, could be hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, of course.
But we as humans don't have the bandwidth to troll through all of them and then try to connect. AI can go through, millions of tokens in minutes.
Yeah. So let's talk now about. I appreciate the answer, by the way. With the time we've got left, I just wanted to cover off a couple more things. Cloudera recently announced the true hybrid cloud architecture. My take on this has always been it was like the cloud native guys versus the on-prem guys, and we seem to be almost adversarial. You're either the old or the new.
Yeah.
What's your take on this hybrid approach in terms of its pragmatism, its efficacy, and applicability?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, the answer is rooted in how things have evolved. Cloud used to be a destination. Either you were, like you said, you were on-prem or you were in the cloud. But it has moved from being a destination to being an operating model. All the goodness of a public cloud can now be brought into your own data center. So you can get elastic scalability, for instance, serverless, microservices, all of these things. So for those organizations that never moved to the cloud, can now modernize their on-premises through a private cloud. If I can avoid moving my data from one place to another constantly, then a hybrid model actually works great for me, because now it's a level playing field.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Just as we wrap up, I mean, there seem to be so many opportunities and challenges as we think about enterprise AI. But from your perspective, what are a couple of the top opportunities you see out there? And what are a couple of the top challenges that people need to be mindful of?
Top opportunities are this ability to unlock data that is hidden in decades and decades of unstructured data. So almost everything that we do, ERPs, database, everything is structured. But now we can go back to unstructured data. And the beauty of a large language model is that it doesn't really need a relational database to know this is primary key and this is a foreign key. It can find those for us through similarity search and vector distance and all of that. And I think it just opens up a whole world of insights that, like I said, are hidden in plain sight. So that's one. The challenge, I think the biggest challenge is people poo-pooing AI and asking, what has it done for me? And I'm not going to invest in it. It's too expensive. It's not ready. It hallucinates. If we go back to, so you and I remember those exuberant days, irrational exuberance of dot-com boom.
I do.
We had a bust. But then what happened in the intervening 10, 15 years? Technology never stopped. It just, it got, people moved on to other pieces. So it was not mainstream, in-your-face, .com, internet is going to change the world. But it did change the world.
I was going to say, literally everything we said was going to happen happened.
Yes.
It was just time shift, right? It was shifted by what, 10 years?
10
15
years, yes.
Yeah.
So I think AI is going to go through the same journey. Maybe the hype will wear off. Actually, I think it's already, we see large language models, like people are talking about models becoming commodity and, so we're already seeing that a lot of it is happening. But behind the scenes, the advancements are going to come around and 10 years from now, it could be a very different.
I love it. Look, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm looking forward to catching up again soon. Maybe we can do a podcast together on the SanjMo podcast.
Yes,
that'd be great.
Yes.
I'd love
Thank
to catch up with you. If people want to learn more or get in touch with you, what can they do?
So the best way is to follow me on LinkedIn. I would love for people to subscribe to my Medium site and my YouTube. Very easy to find me on either of the two channels by just typing my name.
Sanjeev Mohan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thanks to Cloudera for hosting another episode of the AI Forecast, and special thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out to Cloudera on social media, at Cloudera on LinkedIn, with any questions for our guests or feedback for future episodes. We'll see you next week.